Now that we've all resorted to virtual meetings rather than physical meetings, as we are all using physical distance, I'd like to share some thoughts with you about trust. I studied trust as part of my research into client and consultants creating knowledge together, and I found some interesting things that I thought might be helpful to share with you. First of all, when I talk about trust, I basically mean that people behave according to expectations. The things that I'd like to discuss are a jumpstart, influence, contracting, monitoring, and diversity. So first of all, what we often see when it comes to clients and consultants who cooperate in projects is that clients tend to rehire consultants they have worked with before. And of course, this makes perfect sense because they already are familiar with each other, they know the company, they know the context. So expectations are that they can have a jump start. They can start really quickly with the project, which is often one of the requirements. And it's true. This cooperative advantage, as one might say, is something that's been discussed in literature. And cooperative advantage is a combination of time, identification, and trust. And yes, this leads to a jumpstart when it comes to knowledge creation. So in this sense, trust is an upside for knowledge creation. Another element is that if one of the parties has a high level of expertise, then people trust that this person knows a lot about the topic at hand. And the person is given usually a lot of influence in the knowledge creation process, which again makes perfect sense because he or she is the expert in the field, and why wouldn't you want to listen to the expert? So far, so good. However, there are also 3 topics that are interesting as they might be downsides of trust. At least they are things to take into consideration. First of all, what we also see is that when people have a high level of trust, they tend to go through the contracting phase really quickly. They tend to have less specification than when there is a low level of trust or when people simply haven't worked with each other before. And you might say, okay, why is this an issue? I trust the person. I don't have to have really strict agreements. Of course, you're absolutely right. It might be a perfectly valid point. However, what I've seen in my study is that this contracting phase, which is basically part of your project definition phase, is also really important because having a mutual understanding of what the expected output is, having a mutual understanding of context and language is really important for project success as well. So if you move through the contracting phase too quickly because there's already a high level of trust, this might cause some issues later on in the project because there might be misunderstandings that you could have anticipated earlier on if you had paid a little bit more attention to the contracting phase. The second potential downside or pitfall is a lack of monitoring. If there is a high level of trust, people tend to trust the person so much that they pay less attention to the content of what the person says. Whereas I might have a lot of expertise, but I don't know everything there is to know, and I need to exchange some thoughts as well. So if people trust me too much, up to a level that they are not critical towards the content of what I'm saying, this could have a negative impact on knowledge creation. The third potential downside is a lack of diversity. If there's a high level of trust among people, they often tend to align their line of thinking, meaning that there's less diversity in thinking. And diversity is important for knowledge creation because it helps you to look at things from different perspectives. So to summarize, If you look at trust, there's 5 topics that are important. First of all, a high level of trust can help you jumpstart your project. A high level of trust can help you influence the outcomes of the project, but also stakeholders involved in the project. A high level of trust also has 3 potential pitfalls. That is a lack of importance paid in the contracting phase. It's a lack of monitoring, and it's a lack of diversity. Then there's 2 tips that might help you prevent the potential downsides. First of all, pay attention to your contracting phase. Even if you've worked with each other really often, even if you trust each other to a high level, do pay attention to the contracting phase. Make sure that you have a mutual understanding of expected outcomes. And the second tip that I'd like to share with you is have moderate social dynamics. Because studies have also shown if there's a high level of social dynamics, there's a really high level of trust. And this could lead to the potential downsides. Because you've already resorted to virtual communication, you will most likely automatically have more moderate social dynamics. So in this sense, this is one of the upsides. I hope that these pointers have been helpful, and see you soon.